Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the channel that talks all things Wentworth. If you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button right now for all future updates. As usual, I will be responding to some of your lovely comments from my previous videos towards the end of this video, so feel free to stick around, and all my social media links will be posted underneath this video. Right then guys, this episode was everything. It was everything that I've wanted to see happen, and the writers delivered in full with extras. Yes, I am talking about the slime ball Judy Bryant. She got her just desserts in this episode, and I'm not just talking about being dunked in a dirty bin filled with dirty bin water. So much happened to Judy in this episode, and I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed every single moment of it. And I have got some fresh new theories for what I think is going to come in these last 5 episodes, so make sure you stick around. Okay, so the episode begins with the women in the dining room with some tense music playing in the background, and Judy is eating her beans and the other women are eating their breakfast, and then we see Allie, who is completely focused on watching Judy. You can literally see the anger in her face this whole time. I then love this next part because Lou Kelly walks past Allie and Lou can see Allie watching Judy, and Lou has this little smirk as she knows that shit is about to go down soon. Lou and Allie then lock eyes from each other's table and they give each other this look that I just absolutely loved. It was such a great moment that Lou is actually letting Allie deal with Judy at her own pace. It was great. Interestingly though, I noticed that Rita gives 2 looks on the table, like she knows something is wrong. Almost as if Rita can feel the tension in the air between Allie and Judy, even though Judy is completely oblivious to it all at this point. Next we have Ann Reynolds having a complete mental moment in a staff meeting, like she's proper lost it and she's shouting at the top of her voice. She did have some great lines in this scene, so it started with Ann saying, "Why the fuck am I waking up to this cunt fest?" And we see that Ann has discovered obviously the camera in the prison that's filming the women in the showers, and that they have ended up on a website called slammer.com. Another amazing line that Ann delivers is, "Our dirty knickers are online and everyone's having a fucking sniff." That was amazing. So Ann is going nuts and shouting at Will, and he is giving it back to her in front of all the staff, and this just goes back to what I said in one of my videos a few weeks ago. If the officers and the management are going to continue having crazy blazing rows in these staff meetings, then this prison just has no hope, and things are pretty much getting more and more out of control as these episodes continue. It's crazy though, because sometimes I find Ann Reynolds really entertaining to watch, like in this scene when she's going crazy, and then other times I just want her to just disappear and get off my TV screen. But I thought Ann was quite hilarious in this scene. Ann also points out that a gas canister is still missing, so interestingly the dentist guy or the officers, they noticed that a canister of nitrous oxide went missing last week. So Ann orders a cell toss and tells the officers that she wants results this time. So Linda gets everyone ready and in action for this cell toss, and Zaina ends up running back to the unit, warning Boomer on the way through. So Boomer makes a run for it back to the unit and tells everyone that a cell toss is about to happen, and Boomer grabs the camera and I think she hides it in her like vajayjay or something just before Linda arrives on the scene. Now this is another scene that I found quite interesting, because we have Linda ordering the women to strip down to their underwear in the unit in front of everyone, like even in front of the male officers that are currently there, and Boomer, Rita and everyone are like, what? No way. Boomer is like, no, I'm not doing that. And then even Rita tells Linda that no one is gonna do that. So Linda tells Rita that you don't make the rules, Connors, and Rita replies, neither do you, Miss Miles. And Linda says, no, but I do enforce them. Linda then tells Boomer to take her clothes off, but Boomer refuses. So Linda tries to get her slotted, and Allie, Ruby and Judy, they're all going nuts and saying you cannot do this. Then Rita shouts out to let Boomer go, and then Linda tells Rita to back off, but Rita says, I will report you, to which Linda replies, to who? My superiors? I have been authorized to do whatever it takes to find any contraband, and orders Rita to take off her clothes or to get slotted. Now, what I came to realise in this scene is that Rita, she wasn't in prison last season, so Rita wasn't around when Linda turned into this hard, strict, horrible officer after the siege, and I believe this was the writers showing Rita's reaction to this new Linda Miles. And I think Rita was quite shocked at how Linda was treating them all. I mean, making them all strip in front of each other while there are male officers in the unit, to me personally, I think it's really bang out of order, and it's humiliating for them as well. So the women start stripping down to their underwear, and Linda goes over to Allie, who is just sitting there in a chair with B's blanket, and she's not doing any stripping. So Linda and Allie have a little bit of a stare off for a moment, and then Linda tells Allie to lift up the blanket or take it off or something like that, but Allie doesn't. So Linda rips the blanket off Allie's lap, and Rita is watching in disgust in the distance. Linda then orders Allie to strip, and then Rita is like, seriously, you're gonna go there? Like, Rita's reaction in this scene is just everything. She's shocked, she's horrified, she's probably a little bit confused as to why Linda is behaving like this, and also Rita is probably starting to get really pissed off now. Rita doesn't like bullies, especially bullies in a uniform, and I reckon Rita is going to start fighting back soon. In fact, it's going to get to the point where Rita can't just sit back and watch what's happening, and she will eventually be forced to do something to protect the women, and then this could lead on to Rita taking on Lou for the top dog position, which will explain the upcoming fight scenes that we've seen in the few trailers. I love it when Rita stands up to the officers to protect her friends, but I think Rita is slowly coming to realise that she's gonna have to do more. I reckon with all this punishment that Anne Reynolds has brought in, an inmate is going to end up dead at some point. Someone will be in restraints and will call for help, but their cries will be ignored, and then this inmate will end up dying, and this will just send the women over the edge. And if this were to happen, I really hope it's Rita who leads the women to fight back against the officers, because some sort of war is going to happen. We heard it from Lou Kelly in one of the trailers when Lou Kelly said, the path that you're on leads to war, and a lot of people we know will end up dead. So we've got all this to come, and I'm so ready for this. So in the next scene, Will is now angry with Anne for making the women strip in front of each other, and he's telling her that she's overstepping the line every single day, and he can't make excuses for her any longer. Anne is then with Vera and telling her that Will spoke to her like a child. But Vera points out that everyone is stressed out at the moment and that Anne's manner in the staff meeting isn't really helping things. And Anne is like, I don't have time for staff who are made of fairy floss, and she's still really mad about having to apologise to that bitch Judy Bryant last week, which did make me giggle. But Anne, she is so out of control right now, but at the same time I'm kind of loving it. Then in the next scene, the women are sitting in the yard, and Allie is saying that Miss Miles is out of control, but Rita points out that this bullshit has come from further up the food chain. Boomer then tells the girls that it's going to be so hard for her to film the Muff movie now. And then Boomer asks Ruby and Allie if she can film them both having sex for Gavin's website. And I was like, what? Boomer, you can't ask them to do that. But Allie says that she can't move her legs, so if the officers were to see this footage, then they'll know that Allie is one of the people in the videos. So Ruby looks around and says, what about Zaina? She's pretty hot and she can keep a secret. So Boomer asks Ruby to go to Zaina and ask her, and mentions that she will pay her very well. So Ruby is like, oh, Boomer, okay, I'm only doing this for the baby though. Now I loved this next scene with Ruby and Zaina. So Ruby asks Zaina about the sex thing, and she's like, I know it all sounds a bit weird, but Boomer will pay you. So Zaina asks Ruby, who do I have to get on with? And Ruby is like, whoever you want. So Zaina is like, I'll do it if it's with you. And Ruby starts smiling and gets a little bit like, you know, giggly, and I just love this moment between these two. Zaina and Ruby fancy each other, and to be fair, I think these these two look really good together. Ruby is like, well, I'll be there helping Boomer, but you'll have to find someone else to make out with. So Zaina's like, okay, no worries, but tell Boomer or Numbnuts or whatever it was that she said, tell her that I don't come cheap. And then Zaina is like, see you later, fluffer. And these two were just so goddamn cute together. And as Zaina walks off, she turns around and has another little pervert Ruby from behind. Like Zaina has it bad for Ruby. And I really hope that these two do get it together. But then I was also thinking, oh no, the writers are gonna pair these two up together, get us all to fall in love with them, and now something bad is then either gonna happen to Ruby or Zaina, or even both of them. I just have a really bad feeling that the writers are gonna get us to enjoy all these scenes together, only to cruelly snatch one of them away as part of a bigger storyline that's gonna happen as the season goes on. Judy comes out into the yard and she's wearing one of these new dark Wentworth jackets, which we will see other women wearing throughout the episode. And she comes over to where Allie is sitting and she says that her supporters have been crowdfunding for her, and I think she said that they've raised something like 300,000 or something like that, and counting, and says that she's now got herself a shit-hot new lawyer. And then there's this look in Allie's face, like she's confused and thinking about something, but this will come out a little bit later in this episode. In the next scene, Jake goes to see Nanny Wilder to ask how she is, and Eva's like, never mind me, how is your little one? And Jake is like, I can't believe the change in her, you're amazing. And then Joan is watching everything in the distance, as Joan does. Eve then cuts her finger in front of Jake, and Jake gets the first aid and sees to it, and you can clearly see that Eve has the hots for Jake. And when Eve spots Joan, Joan gives this look to Eve as if to say, ooh, look at you two. Joan is definitely trying to plant seeds into Eve's head that Jake fancies her, but really, in my opinion, Jake is just interested in her parenting tips and advice. And of course, Joan knows this as well, and she's clearly doing this because she knows Eve has a very bad reaction to rejection, so this is what the end game is going to be all about. Sticking with Eve and Joan for the moment, later on they are back together in Joan's cell, and Eve is telling Joan about the number 6 guy or something that she's murdered after being rejected. Eve says that he was tall and he was quite hard to get into the boot, and we find out that Eve took this guy to the state forest, and Joan is really enjoying all these murder stories from Eve. It's so messed up and twisted, but it's so weirdly fascinating watching two psychopaths chatting about their murders together like it's just a normal thing that you discuss over a cup of tea. Eve then comes out with, I bet Mr. Stewart's a good dad, and Joan is like, I don't think I've ever seen him so friendly with a prisoner. And then Eve is like, I bet his cock is bigger than a mushroom. Oh god. And I just burst out laughing like I just did here. Some of the lines used in this episode were just amazing, and they really caught me off guard. I'm just glad I wasn't drinking like a lemonade or a cup of tea during these scenes, because I would have ended up spitting it out everywhere. Anyway, Joan keeps planting these seeds in Eve's head, and then asks Eve to test Jake's affections by asking him if he will bring in some contraband. And Eve is like, I do actually fancy some cigarettes. And Joan is like, I could do with a good quality vodka. So Eve says that, okay, she will ask him. So later on, that's just what Eve does. So she has a chat with Jake in the yard through the fence, and she tells him that she isn't sleeping too well at the moment, and when she was on the outside, she always used to have a shot of vodka just before bed to help her sleep, and she would be very grateful if he could get her some. Jake doesn't really say anything and just slowly walks off. Eve then goes to Joan and says he couldn't get away from me quick enough, but Joan tells Eve not to panic, he's just put on the spot and that he is an ethical officer and was just caught between his morals and his mushroom, as Eve says. And then Joan, she does something that none of us has ever seen before, and she bursts out laughing, like she really, like proper uncontrollably laughing out loud, and Vera hears it as she's walking past, and I bet Vera is thinking, is that really Joan laughing? It was a brilliant scene. I'm not sure whether if Joan laughing like this was a side effect of Dr. Miller's tablets or not, or maybe Joan found this joke from Eve it just tickled her in some way. It was brilliant to watch though. Much later on in the episode, Jake goes to Eve and gives her a bottle of wine, which he managed to get off Linda, as Linda, she was helping herself to leftovers from a staff party that Anne had organised randomly earlier on in the episode. Like, this scene was really weird and out of the blue because Will walks into the staff room and everyone is there drinking and partying with loud music, and half of them are on duty. It was just a bit mental. Like, I don't know where this scene came from. It was just so random, and Anne was there like a really wild party girl, as if she was on a night out clubbing with friends. I'm assuming this was a party that Anne had organised in a way to butter up the officers after her crazy outburst at the start of the episode. Anyway, Jake gives Eve the bottle of wine, which isn't quite the vodka that Joan wanted, but Joan is like, well, you know, he's got taste. Vera is watching in the distance and she doesn't see the wine bottle exchange. However, she is wondering what is going on, and she asks Jake, why are you so friendly with Eve? And Jake is like, well, she's a nice person and she's the reason why you are having a better night's sleep. And this really pisses Vera off. She pulls Jake into a private room and she is like, do not tell me that the stuff that I've been giving Grace has been made by Eve. And Jake is like, no, she just gave me the recipe. And Vera is like, are you stupid? What if this was Joan's way of trying to get to baby Grace? But Jake thinks that Vera's just being silly, and Vera leaves in a bit of a tantrum. The whole time, Joan Ferguson is watching, and as Vera leaves, she catches Joan watching for a split second there. I think Vera is getting closer in proving that Joan has got her memory back, but more on that later. Anyway, back to Boomer's porno. And Zaina and this other random chick come to Boomer's cell to film the action. And Ruby's there too, and the flirtation between Zaina and Ruby is just awesome. I loved every minute of it. Boomer then gives Zaina and this other chick a spit bag to put over their heads so they don't get recognised. So they give it a go, but Zaina is like, this is really weird, I can't see anything and I can't do things with my mouth. So Zaina ends up whipping off the mask and she just gets on with it. And Boomer is there recording it all and she is loving it. Also, Ruby is there keeping watch, but you can clearly see Ruby wishes that she was the chick that Zaina is getting on with. Now let's talk about Allie. So the officers didn't find the canister, and that's because Allie has it hidden in the library, which is quite clever in my opinion. So Allie grabs it and takes it back to her unit. Later on in the night, Allie whispers to Judy, do you want to get high? So Judy goes into Allie's cell and the pair of them get high on the gas, and this was a pretty crazy scene. So they're both laughing about Boomer's lesbian porno and it all seems quite innocent at first, but while they are both high, Allie asks Judy what did she do with Lou and Reb's money. I mean, if she had to get crowdfunding for a new lawyer, then what did Judy use the money for? And then Judy is like, what do you think I spent it on? And Allie's like, I don't know, you're dodgy as hell. And the pair of them keep laughing every time they exchange a part of a conversation, and it gets more and more slightly out of control and dark. Allie then eventually just comes out with it and she says, I reckon you stabbed me. And then Judy's reply is, and you lived, and laughs. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell, Judy? I can't believe you just admitted it while you're high on this gas and you're laughing about it to Allie's face. And then Allie says that she wishes that she didn't live, and that Judy must have shit herself when she found out that Allie was coming back to the prison. And Judy even admits that she tried to get herself slotted, but it didn't work. And this scene just gets more and more messed up. Anyway, Linda and another officer hear the laughing and they go to investigate, and they catch Allie and Judy with the gas, and they both end up in the slot for the night. So first things first, how evil is Judy? Like, what an evil cow. I cannot believe she just turned around to Allie and said, and you lived, and started laughing, like literally an evil bitch. Later on in the slot, they are in the cells next to each other, and Judy is no longer high, and she's talking to Allie through the vent and starts to apologise about the things that she said earlier, and she says that she was only joking. Allie responds by saying to Judy not to worry. She knows that she was joking, but Allie only says this to put Judy's mind at ease, right? But Judy's mind is far from at ease because Judy now has a problem, and she knows that she's gonna have to try and get rid of Allie once again, this time for keeps, just in case Allie repeats what she says to the others. But Allie has a little plan of her own. So the next day arrives and they're both released, and Judy pushes Allie in the wheelchair, and you can see in both of their faces that they both have a plan to sort each other out, but who will strike first? Well, later on, Allie is in the shower block taking a shower, and Judy is in her cell sharpening a blade, and then heads to the shower block armed with this blade. Boomer and Ruby are there in the shower block waiting for Allie to finish her shower so they can help her out back into the chair. And Judy is like, have you guys seen Zaina? Zaina wanted to play basketball with you, so if you want to go, I can kind of look after Allie. So Ruby and Boomer are like, are you sure? And Judy is like, hell yeah, of course. But Boomer and Judy, they kind of give each other this little look, and not all is what it seems. Anyway, Boomer and Ruby, they both leave the showers and leave Judy there. Allie then finishes her shower and pulls the curtain to tell Boomer and Ruby that she's ready, but nobody is there, not even Judy. So Allie gets herself off her shower chair and has to crawl over the floor to get to her wheelchair. And it's a really tense moment now. I was literally grabbing the ends of my sofa at this point, and as Allie gets closer to her wheelchair, Judy, she comes out from one of the other cubicles with that blade in her hand, and she goes to Allie. Allie then turns around and looks at Judy in the face, and Judy says, I'm really sorry about this, but then Allie shouts, now! And in comes Boomer, Ruby, and Rita. And Judy literally shits herself. The game is up. Allie had planned all of this with the others, and it was so bloody clever. I mean, it was quite dangerous as we don't really know when Judy was going to strike Allie again, and it could have gone horribly wrong, but they did it. Allie set Judy up perfectly, and I was screaming at the TV. Rita, Ruby, and Boomer are there, and Rita is like, what are you gonna do, Judy? Shiv us all? And I was literally thinking at this point, there is no way Judy would be able to fight all three of them. Like, not even just one of them, because Boomer, Rita, and Ruby, they're all really good fighters, and Judy is nothing, let's face it. Judy only attacks people from behind, or in Anne Reynolds' case, when she has been spitbagged, so Judy had no hope anyway. So Ruby ends up asking Allie, what do you want us to do with her? We then cut straight to the next scene, and we are back at the unit, and Judy has locked herself in her cell with Boomer banging on the outside and calling Judy a Judas. Now, just a quick observation here, but how did Judy manage to get back to the unit unharmed? Like, she was cornered in the shower block by them all, so there is no way she could have escaped them. I can only assume that Allie told them to leave her go and we will deal with her later, and then Judy obviously made some sort of run for it back to the unit to lock herself in. That's my take on it anyway. So Judy is locked in her cell and she is shitting herself. Ruby, Boomer, Rita, and Allie, they are all outside Judy's cell talking, and I absolutely loved this scene because it really showed the impact that this revelation has done to these characters, and it was great to really see their reactions about Judy. So Boomer is saying that we should put Judy in a wheelchair to see how she likes it, and Ruby is like, nah, a wheelchair isn't enough. So Allie asks Rita, what do you think? And Rita is like, oh, it's a dog's act, but don't go making things worse for yourself. And Rita tells Ruby that she promised their dad that she wouldn't let her stuff up her parole. And Ruby is like, well, she tried to kill Allie. And then Rita is like, I don't have a problem with her dying, but put the weapon in someone else's hand. And I absolutely love that line that Rita delivered. Allie totally agrees with Rita's suggestion. Now, what this scene did make me realize is that Ruby, poor Ruby, sorry Ruby, but you have to die. Or something bad has to happen to Ruby, because the reason why I say this is because Rita, she's still in this mindset of protecting Ruby and trying to keep out of trouble. Now, in order for the full badass Rita to be unleashed, something has to happen to Ruby, or Ruby has to be taken out of the equation just somehow, so Rita can be unleashed. It's like B. Smith back in season 1. As soon as Debbie was trying tragically killed, B was unleashed, and she didn't care anymore about getting into trouble, and she wanted full revenge. So I feel the same thing has to happen here with Ruby and Rita. I mean, we've seen in trailers that Rita is going to end up in a few fight scenes, and I'm sure Rita will fight if she was cornered anyway, but I want to see the full Rita unleashed. I want Rita to put her 2 fingers up at the law and become this amazing top dog hero that she's capable of being. So Ruby either has to die or she just needs to be paroled. Just get Ruby out of there so Rita can be her full potential. Anyway, back to this scene. I love the moment when Boomer said the worst thing that you can do in here is to try and take out your top dog, and the second worst thing you can do is go against your crew, and Judy did both. I just love Boomer because Boomer always sticks to these rules no matter how old they are. Boomer is old school and I have massive respect for Boomer. So the decision is that they are all agreeing on is to put the weapon in someone else's hand, and Allie knows just the person. So Allie and Mari are having a chat as they're in the yard, and Allie tells Mari that it was Judy who stabbed her, and Mari is like, why? And Allie says, because I found out that she stole Lou and Reb's money, and she tells Mari to feel free to pass on that information, and I was like, yes Allie, that's the way. Like literally this episode just had me so pumped because as every scene was coming on, it was literally just like a whole episode about getting Judy, and I was so happy. I was as happy as a pig in shit. So a little bit later on, we are in the laundry and the atmosphere in the scene is just off the scale. Judy comes in with the laundry basket and the women are calling Judy all sorts of names. Everyone is just watching Judy. Mari, Allie, Boomer, even Mullet. I just loved it. It felt like for the first time in a very long time, all the women and all the crews were united together against Judy. And Lou is on the press, watching everything, and Lou is looking like she's ready to sort Judy out. But Lou waits for Judy to come to her, and Judy goes up to Lou and says that she wants to make a deal for her protection, and that she will make it worth her while. So Lou walks down off the steam press to Judy, and Lou says to Judy, you stole Reb's money. And Judy is like, I can give it back, with interest. But Lou says, do you know what I really want? Reb. Can you do that? And Lou moves closer to Judy and things start getting more and more tense. Lou then grabs Judy's face and starts to squish her face like an insect. And then Lou tells her crew to throw Judy in the dryer. And then Lou throws Judy towards the dryer, and no word of a lie, did you see the way Lou just flung Judy? Like Judy just went flying as if she was a rag doll. So Mullet and the women grab Judy and they're about to put Judy in the dryer. But then the officer in charge calls out to Bryant and says that her lawyer is here to see her. So Judy is saved at the very last hurdle, and Lou is pissed off that she missed her moment. So Judy practically runs out of that laundry to go and see her lawyer. I absolutely loved how intense this scene was, especially the music that they used. You know the part where Lou said to the women to throw Judy in the dryer? The music was just building and building, it was so dramatic. And for a moment there, I honestly thought she was going in that dryer, which, by the way guys, how big is that dryer? It's bloody huge. You could probably fit about 4 of the women in there. Either way though, what an incredible scene. Later on, after Judy's visit with her lawyer, Judy is walking down the corridor and bumps into Boomer. And my god, this was another amazing scene because Boomer just completely loses it. This was Boomer at her best. It was a mixture of the old Boomer from season 1, but also the newer version and wiser version of Boomer that we now know. So Boomer punches Judy clean out in the face, and I tell you what, all that training with Ruby has given Boomer a killer right hook. Boomer then smashes Judy's face into the brick wall, and I tell you now, Boomer was not messing around. She proper smashed Judy's face into that wall. Boomer then grabs Judy, and Judy's got all this blood in her mouth at this point, and Boomer says to Judy, I don't know how you could have done what you done. Allie is the best friend that anyone would want, and we all trusted you. Boomer then smashes Judy's head right into that wall again, and Judy falls to the floor. Boomer then then drags Judy by the legs and starts to throttle her around the throat and says, "You took something from Allie, and I'm not talking about her legs. You made Allie see the world differently, and she's just not the same anymore." Boomer then lets go of Judy's throat and says that she's never going to forgive her, and then Boomer starts to kick the crap out of Judy over and over again until the officers see what's happening, and then they stop Boomer and grab her and drag her away, and Boomer is screaming at Judy, and this scene was just so powerful. I truly believe Boomer could have killed Judy at this point if she wasn't stopped. Boomer proper lost it, and there was nobody around to stop her. Like, if you remember back in season 6 and season 7, Kaz was always around to stop Boomer bashing women, or stopping her from going too far at least, but Boomer really meant business in this scene, and once again I loved every minute of it. I don't condone violence, guys, but on this occasion I was cheering Boomer on. In the next scene, Judy is in the prison hospital and Anne Reynolds comes in to visit her, and the first thing that Anne Reynolds says is, "How's the ribs?" and gives a little snide look on her face. Anne then says that the extradition is back on, and Allie has withdrawn his statement of dependency that Judy was counting on. Anne and Judy then throw some mild, snidey insults at each other, and Anne says that she won't stop until Judy is locked away with all her terrorist friends and forgotten about. But Judy then says that she has thousands of followers and she won't be forgotten. So was this Judy actually admitting that she's a terrorist? I mean, I think we've all worked it out now that she is, but is this the first time that she hasn't denied it? Anne Reynolds then says that the most precious thing in her world has already been taken from her, but Judy still has a long way to go. And I thought this was interesting that Anne brought her daughter up in this scene, because I am convinced that it's all going to come out that Judy was the one who was specifically responsible behind the London bombing that killed Anne's daughter. I just have a strong feeling about it, and it would explain the preview photos that we've seen of Anne beating Judy with a baton from upcoming episodes. Later on during nighttime, an officer comes to get Judy from the prison hospital and takes her to the dining room on her own to have some food. But while Judy is eating, this officer just disappears, and then all of a sudden some of the prisoners arrive with a big yellow bin. Next minute, Judy is in this yellow bin and is being taken to a different part of the prison where Allie, Rita, Ruby, Mari, all the women are there waiting for her. Now, I'm not quite sure which part of the prison this is. I'm not sure if it's like some part of the kitchen or if it's behind the kitchen or what, but I don't recall ever seeing this area. I'm not too sure. The women then throw Judy out of the bin and they all start throwing rubbish at her. Once again, I just love this scene because here we have all the women united once again, which is a real rarity, and Judy is having her just desserts. Judy starts to plead with Allie for help, but Allie's having none of it. Lou then arrives on the scene and tells all the women, "Shall we take out the trash?" And everyone starts to cheer. Then the women open up this other big green bin that's filled with dirty bin water. You can literally see the dirty bits of food and rubbish floating at the top of this water. It was really disgusting. And then the women lift up Judy and they throw her head first into this dirty bin of water. Judy's pleading with Lou for help and she wants to make a deal, but Lou puts her thumbs down and the women slam shut the lid, and Judy is in there trapped under the dirty water. And then the women open up the lid and they pull Judy back up for one final moment as Lou Kelly says, "You got any last words?" And that is what we heard in one of those trailers. And Judy is like, "I have a deal for you, Lou. You really, really do want to hear this." But Lou is like, "Nah." And the women slam shut the lid once again. And this time, Judy's under that water for quite a long time. She's pretty much about to die before the women open up the lid once again. Lou then goes over to Judy and is like, "Okay, little fish, what's the deal?" Judy then whispers something into Lou's ear, and then Lou is like, "Okay, drag her out," and everyone is looking confused by what is happening. And then Lou says that Judy is now under her protection, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Even Allie is like, "What the hell has just happened?" So judging by Allie's reaction, I'm assuming Judy was supposed to die in this scene. Like, I'm assuming that was the deal, that maybe Allie and Lou Lou made together on the quiet, I'm not sure. But I think curiosity just got the better of Lou and she wanted to know what this deal was. And I think this is the only thing that saved Judy from a full-on drowning. So what did Judy say to Lou? Well, we will get onto that in just a moment. I just wanted to quickly talk about Vera, Joan and Dr. Miller. So as I said earlier, I feel Vera is on to Dr. Miller, and I think Vera has realised that Joan has got her memory back, but she just needs to get the proof now. So she does some digging after hearing Joan laughing with Eve Wilder in the yard, and she discovers that Eve used to be an inmate at Blackmore while Joan was an officer. So Vera goes to Dr. Miller and questions him about it, but Dr. Miller just plays dumb and he's like, Joan hasn't regained any of her memory. So Vera asks Dr. Miller to mention Eve to Joan in their next meeting. And when Vera sees Greg later on, she asks him what was Joan's reaction, and Dr. Miller just says Joan has no memory of Eve Wilder. But Vera's face, she knows something isn't quite right. At one point in the episode, she notices him carrying a folder around which has Joan Ferguson's name written on it, and she is adamant to see what's inside this file. So later on, when Dr. Miller is doing a routine psych check on Boomer after Boomer was slotted because she bashed Judy, Vera grabs his file and takes photos on her phone. She doesn't have time to read it at this stage, she's just taking photos on her phone to read later. And she does read later towards the end of this episode, and this is why I wanted to quickly talk about this storyline, because the ending of this episode is a bit of a revelation montage. So just before I talk about the final moments, there is a scene where Jake is just about to drive home from work while he's making a phone call to Vera, but he ends up knocking into Anne Reynolds with his car as he pulls off. Like, he doesn't actually full on run her over, worse luck, he just knocks her over because apparently she's jogging home for some reason. So Jake is like, don't be stupid, get in the car and I'll take you home. Okay, so this ending montage scene, so we have Joan and Eve having drinks with the bottle of wine that Jake gave them. It's so messed up and twisted, but I bloody love it. We then cut to Jake and Anne Reynolds having sex in his car, which I was really disappointed with. Like, I honestly thought Jake had better taste, but oh well, it is what it is. Jake the Snake appears one more time. I'm just wondering who's next on Anne's list. I mean, she'd be riding Dr. Miller in his office next week. Then we see Vera just about to leave the prison, and she's on her phone looking at these photos that she's taken. And she sees that Joan has indeed regained her full memory. And I was like, wow. Now Vera knows the truth. All bets are off. I love this little montage because it reminded me of the season 2 days when they would do this sort of thing at the end of an episode, and they would reveal a load of secrets in one go, getting us all pumped for the next episode. We then cut to our final scene of the episode, and Judy and Lou are alone in Lou's cell, and Judy says to Lou, I swear we will be out of here before the month's out. And Lou says, well, how do I know these contacts of yours aren't bullshit? And Judy says, well, you'll be the one talking to them because I'm not allowed visitors. Judy then turns to Lou and says, fuck Anne Reynolds, fuck them all. We are going to bomb our way out of here. Judy then leaves the cell, and then look at Lou's face. She looks happy, but also she looks a bit overwhelmed, like she can't believe that this is happening. Like, everything that she's wanted to do to the prison has just been handed to her on a plate. But I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think Lou is going to let Judy get away with stealing Rev's money. Not a chance. Lou is just going to use Judy for this bomb plot for the escape, and then at the very last moment Lou will kill Judy just before Lou makes her escape. But now it's all confirmed, guys. Judy and Lou, they're going to work together to bomb this prison in order for them to escape, which we all predicted would happen. But I've got a feeling this isn't just going to be one bomb. No way. This is going to be multiple bombs to blow this prison apart, and it's going to be insane. Before I wrap this episode up, I just have to talk about a scene that made my mouth completely drop to the floor. Like, I literally gasped. And it was this scene with Lou and Mari. So Lou is feeling emotional and alone at nighttime again because she's missing Reb. And Mari comes in to comfort Lou, like she has been doing. Then, all of a sudden, Lou jumps up and starts to kiss Mari. And, you know, is trying it on with her. Like, she's trying to, like, have sex with her. But Mari stops her and tells tells her this isn't what you want. Like, literally, I actually screamed out, "What is going on?" when this happened, because I wasn't expecting this. However, it was understandable. Lou wanted to fill in that void, that gap that she is currently missing, and she just wanted to feel loved for a moment, and Mari is the only person who is showing Lou any affection at this stage, so I can understand why it happened. However, I was not expecting it. So, what an incredible episode. I definitely think this is my favourite episode of the season so far, for obvious reasons. I mean, I knew Judy was going to end up in that bin full of water, but I had no idea that we were going to get so many scenes of Judy just getting her just desserts, all in one episode. It was just amazing, and this episode had everything. It was full of action and drama, and it even had me laughing in some scenes. Absolutely incredible. Actually, I'm going to call this episode, because I've said this word so many times now, this episode, if I could describe it in one word, was incredible. So I think my favourite part of this episode was Boomer beating up Judy in the corridor. I mean, the bin full of water was a close call, but I think I much preferred Boomer smashing Judy's head into the wall. I'm just gutted that Boomer missed Judy getting dunked in the water. I bet Boomer is going to be so gutted she missed it all when she gets out of the slot next week. And my least favourite part of this episode, I think, is going to have to be Anne and Jake having sex in his car. I mean, I was slightly just disappointed, and I thought Jake had better taste. And I mean, apart from Linda and Mr. Jackson, who hasn't Jake slept with? And the same goes for Anne. Like I said, I reckon Dr. Miller will be on her list next, but then again, I can't really blame her. Okay, so prediction time. Well, now that Vera knows the truth about Dr. Miller and Joan, I'm wondering what she's going to do. I don't think she's going to go straight up to Dr. Miller to call him a liar. I think she's going to keep quiet, and she is going to come up with her own plan to expose Joan and Dr. Miller together. Now, we've seen those photos where Vera and Joan, it looks like they're in the courthouse. I'm not 100% sure. They're definitely on the outside, and Vera has that folder, remember, in her hands. So maybe these are the photos that she took on her phone of Dr. Miller's file, and Vera is going to expose Joan in the middle of this trial. That's what I think anyway. I don't think it's Joan's trial next week, by the way, but I feel that's how the storyline is going to go. Vera's just going to play along and act dumb, and she's going to pull out this massive piece of evidence right in the middle of Joan's court, just to humiliate her a little bit, you know what I mean? Also, next week, I believe, is eyeball week. Yes, Eve Wilder is going to lose an eyeball, or something bad happens to her left eye, put it that way. No idea how it's going to happen, or who's going to do it, but it's going to be gruesome. I think Eve will try to make her move on Jake before the eyeball thing happens, and I'm pretty sure it's Eve who hits Jake on the back of the head with that fire extinguisher for whatever reason, so that is probably going to happen next week too. I believe Rita's past comes back to haunt her next week, and all is revealed about Rita being an undercover cop, so we could be in for some big Rita fight scenes next week, and this could also place Ruby in serious danger as well. I think Judy and Lou are going to be planning their bomb and their escape plot. Well, I've got a feeling that Mari is going to be getting in the way, and Judy is going to try and get rid of Mari somehow. Maybe Judy will do something to Ruby and will set Mari up for the fall, and this might explain why the women lynch and hang Mari in the shower block, what we saw in one of the trailers. I mean, we are at the halfway mark now, guys, and the best episodes are yet to come. It's all so exciting. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this week's episodes? Tell me honestly, you all enjoyed Judy getting her just desserts, didn't you? Let me know in the comments box below. Did you prefer Boomer's beating or the bin water scene? Also, let me know your predictions on Vera's next move now that she knows the truth. Okay guys, well, on that subject, it's now time for some comment replies. So we have free TV. I love this channel. I guess my only question is, once Wentworth is done in a month, will this channel continue? Yes, of course, free TV. This channel is going to keep going. We've got a few surprises for you, so stay tuned. Thank you for your comment. And we have Green Turtle. Vera has to kill Joan in the end, or either way their story arcs have to end each other, because they've been working against each other since the start. That's a really good point, Green Turtle. Vera is so fixated on trying to expose Joan and destroy her, whereas before now it used to be Joan trying to destroy Vera, so I agree with you. Maybe they're going to end up killing each other, or Vera's going to be the one to take out Joan, and I have predicted this in one of my previous videos. videos, so this could happen. Thank you for your comment. And we have Paul L.S. It's up to the women to sort out Judy, not the bloody general manager bitch woman. It's little lines like that which make me love this channel so much. Anne Reynolds and Judy are both really horrible and so unlikable in Wentworth, very different to their characters in Prisoner Cell Block H. Can't wait to see how Allie is going to respond now that she knows it was Judy who stabbed her. Thank you for that comment, Paul, and yeah, I do come out with some of those random one-liners, don't I? I don't realise I'm doing it sometimes, it just kind of comes off the tongue. But anyway, Paul, I'm glad you're enjoying the channel, thank you for your comment. And we have Sam Wahini. This video got me excited, thank you. You're very welcome, Sam. I'm glad you're enjoying. Thank you for your comment. And we have Laura Hodgepodge. Oh my god, I'm so glad Allie finally knows it was Judy. Also, I just want to thank you for your recap review videos. I always come straight to your channel the second the episode is done. Oh, Laura, that is such a lovely comment. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. I'm glad you enjoy my reviews. I know a lot of you are always really excited and eager for the review video to go up like pretty much straight after the episode has aired. But as you can see, these review videos are about anywhere between half hour to an hour long, so they do take about 2 days at least for me to create these videos, which is why sometimes you are waiting, until Wednesday or Thursday or sometimes even Friday for the review video to come out. But I always try my best to make start on the video the minute I've seen the episode. But thank you for your comment, Laura, and thank you all for your amazing comments. I'm loving your theories, and some of you have been spot on so far, so keep them coming. Right then, well, if you're still here, then thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. I will be back very soon with more Wentworth news and gossip, so make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I'll see you all again very soon.